You know, the people who I really feel sorry for in the midst of all this mess with the open games license and all the stuff going on with Wizards of the Coast and D&D are the poor sods who are actively in the middle of running a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Like, after all this, how do you get up the energy and the excitement, the motivation to want to keep doing that? It's a question I ask myself because since September I've been running a 5th edition Spelljammer campaign. Took a little couple week break after Christmas. It's just kind of good to just kind of, reset yourself and come back to it with fresh eyes. And this last weekend was supposed to jump right in, and I just found myself just kind of quietly letting the window of time where we normally start the game on Saturday pass by and just kept going about doing my own business. I know, just for the sake of putting a nice bow on the end of it, I need to at least get through like one last little adventure, get the group all tied back together, and give them some sense of a narrative accomplishment before just cutting off and moving on. But man, I really just want to cut it off and move on, and not as a lot of people seem to be doing by jumping into D&D's clones to get away from D&D. I'm not about to try to reconvert everything that the players have over to Pathfinder rules or anything like that, or use an OSR. I want to get back to my own roots, so I've been looking at my Palladium games collection, specifically at the stuff I've never actually run, which isn't a lot of them. I've done some Heroes Unlimited in the past. I've run Rifts multiple times. I've used the Palladium fantasy setting as the beginning to a Rifts campaign, although I guess you could say I've never really run a Palladium fantasy game in and of itself, but going from one fantasy game to another seems kind of redundant. If you're going to change things up, then, like, do something new, something radically different from the thing you were just doing. So I feel like, at least for now, I'm kind of exploring the idea of maybe running Nightbane. I had my wife roll up a character just to kind of get a feel for, what they actually are like. I've had Nightbane on the shelf since forever. I mean, I remember getting a copy of it when it first came out and was still called Nightspawn before they were worried that Todd McFarlane would sue them into oblivion and they changed the name. It's an interesting setting. Its challenge is also its merit. In terms of like character concepts and what to do with it, it is all over the place, which is a pro and a con. It's hard to write for ahead of time. That's part of why I had my wife roll up a character, just to kind of start giving me some sort of anchor point to kind of start thinking about, like, well, what kind of adventures and stories are going to be going around the characters. The characters in it can be very personable. I've always thought of Nightbane as basically Palladium's attempt to cash in on that World of Darkness heat that was around in the mid-90s. In many ways, it's kind of a smorgasbord, catch-all, potluck kind of Palladium game that takes just a bunch of their various rule systems and a few things that already existed in a couple of the games and slaps a new cover on it, adds Nightbane as a playable character species slash RCC, and just kind of like leaves it to you to figure it out, which is admirable. Especially nowadays, where D&D and a lot of other games are like really big on holding your hand with real specific adventure paths and adventure design motifs and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to run it. Just kind of still looking at it as of now. I've also never actually technically run a Ninjas and Super Spies game, despite the fact I'm extremely fond of Ninjas and Super Spies and have used Ninjas and Super Spies resources in other Palladium games, such as Heroes Unlimited or TMNT and stuff like that. Never also actually bothered running Systems Failure, although I don't know. It's awful Falling Skies in tone, and if you're going to go with post-apocalypse, I'd might as well just go ahead and go with Rifts or Run After the Bomb or something, I feel. So I'm, like I said, I'm like looking at Nightbane. Those of you who haven't encountered Nightbane, the Nightbane themselves are basically the Nightbreed from the Clive Barker movie based on his novel Cabal. They're people who've discovered that they've been imbued with supernatural might. They can shapeshift into strange, really hyper-individualistic monsters. And the way I kind of like describe them, the way I described them to my wife, is that they're kind of like humanity's immune system against supernatural invasion. The more strange supernatural evil is leaking into the world, the more Nightbanes seem to appear from amongst the sea of common humanity, and yada, yada, yada. But the game also has a lot of psychic classes that are lifted out of beyond the supernatural and kind of just retweaked for the more modern OCC character design that Palladium has. You get, some human magic users. Playable vampires are a thing. They have these kind of like quasi Area 51 alien kind of people called the Guardians. Various source books they've put out over the years introduce other things, like psychics that can control dreams or live entirely in the astral plane and create their own domains, and a variety of like ex-government agents who've been purged from the system and are turning themselves against the doppelgangers and the Night Lords and the other people who've been replacing key figures in world government and all that kind of stuff. The setting itself, it was originally envisioned in the mid-90s, and it was set in an alternate 2010, where in the year 2000 there was an event called Dark Day, where the entire planet spent 24 hours wrapped in darkness, and there's a bunch of chaos and murder and death, and in the aftermath of that, more Nightbanes started appearing, and during those events, several key figures throughout global government, political parties, militaries, so on and so forth, big corporations, find themselves replaced with the Night Lords and their minions from the Night Lands, which is an alternate dimension that kind of mirrors the Earth. You got, obviously, there's like heavy tones of the X-Files in there, a little bit of They Live, some Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of stuff going on. Obviously, with a heavy dose of Clive Barker, Hellraiser, and Nightbreed stuff going on. And just little hints of the World of Darkness. It's a play as the monster kind of game, but up against bigger, darker, more organized, powerful monsters. You can have, from the looks of it, like large-scale, big, epic campaigns to save the Earth, or smaller personal type stories set in individual cities or areas and just kind of around the characters' immediate concerns and agendas and all that kind of stuff. So, like I said, it's still got to kind of figure out exactly what to do with it. But there's potential there, and at least it's different. Don't know if it's the one I'm going to go with, though. But like I said, it's just something to toy around with. And I guess that's my general recommendation to others. It's not for you to play Nightbane. Is if you're trying to transition yourself off of running D&D, instead of just jumping to something that is identical to D&D anyway, take this opportunity. Look through your collection. Look at some of those games that you've had on the shelf for a while, and that you like things about them, and you might have used ideas from them, but you've never actually run. This is your time to stretch your legs. While people are disgruntled towards Wizards of the Coast, while your players might be a little bit more prone to saying, yeah, screw those guys, let's try something different. Try a little Cyberpunk, try some old World of Darkness, try running Savage Worlds, whip out an old copy of GURPS. Traveler, there's so many different things. Call of Cthulhu, there's so many different games out there that don't use the D&D dynamics and don't have the exact same thematic composition that D&D has. And whether or not I end up sticking and running Nightbane or going with something else, like I said, is still up in the air. I had ordered one of their Palladium surprise packages, and so in some degree, my decision of how I move forward will depend on what randomized assortment of source books they sent me. So I'll find out probably sometime by the end of this week when that package gets here. And in the meantime, just plugging away at it. Like I said, I do need to at least wrap up the D&D campaign, so it's not just kind of hanging the way it's hanging, where, the characters are kind of separated on different planets, and they're at the beginning of a set of adventures as opposed to the end of a set of adventures. And so I at least need to give them something that feels at least like a nice season finale. We can always come back to it later. It's not like we're going to throw out all the books and character sheets or anything like that. I, just on principle, just feel weird about trying to keep running 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in the light of everything that's been going on. And, you know, I've always been an old Palladium aficionado at heart, so I want to get back to my roots. And so I guess that's it. Just a little morning ramble for all y'all to enjoy. Let me know in the comments below some of your thoughts on what are some of the obscure games that you've had sitting on your shelf that you've never actually bothered running as that own game, and that maybe now is the time to pull it off and actually take a gander at whether or not you actually really want to use it or not. And tell me below what some of your thoughts on what some of these games might be. Hit like and subscribe. Check out Total Party Skills on DriveThru RPG or on Amazon.com. Check out the Total Party System Rules Handbook, that generic, universal, setting-agnostic set of my rules that people have been asking for all this time. You can find them in print or PDF on the sites I just mentioned. And until then, stay waspinated.